I'm Mayra Ceja, and you're listening to Venture Unplugged. From deep tech crypto to direct-to-consumer brands and products, each week we dive in deep into the lives and challenges of today's most successful founders and investors. New episodes launch every Tuesday. Sign up for our newsletter at ventureunplugged.com and subscribe on iTunes or Spotify. Follow me on Twitter at Mayra Ceja 007. I'm excited about part 2 of the Mike Novogratz interview. For those of you unfamiliar with Mike Novogratz, he is the founder and CEO of Galaxy Digital, which media channels quickly named the Goldman Sachs of crypto. Mike became a Bitcoin legend when he famously predicted its meteoric rise. Prior to Galaxy, Mike had his own meteoric rise, from growing up middle class to getting his undergrad degree at Princeton University, starting his career as a helicopter pilot, eventually becoming a partner at Goldman Sachs, and later a partner and president at Fortress Investment Group. As always, Mike is full of exciting stories and anecdotes you don't want to miss. This episode is brought to you by Qtum and AWS. Qtum is the first proof-of-stake smart contracts blockchain. It has been around for over 2 years and has over 4,000 nodes around the globe. If you're tired of paying high fees on other smart contract platforms, head over to qtum.org. That's QTUM.org and start building your own low-fee Solidity smart contract today. This podcast is co-presented by BlockWorks Group and Republic. BlockWorks Group is a blockchain events and media production company. For exclusive content and events that provide insight into the crypto and blockchain space, visit them at blockworksgroup.io. Republic is an investment platform that helps companies raise capital from retail investors. For more information, please visit republic.co. From Airbnb and Lyft to Slack and Twilio, the world's top startups build on AWS. AWS has helped hundreds of thousands of companies to build and scale their businesses. AWS has unparalleled insight into the unique needs that startups have and the opportunities that startups chase every day. For more information, go to aws.amazon.com/startups and follow on Twitter at AWS Startups. Welcome back to part 2 of the Mike Novogratz interview. In this episode, we discuss blockchain, Bitcoin, prison reform, and get to know him a little bit better. So let's jump right back in, mid-conversation. What are other use cases that you're excited about?
Well, what we're seeing fastest adoption in is video gaming.
Okay.
And esports, e-gaming, the whole e-community. So like the second biggest app on Ether right now that's used as a video game that our guys have invested in. And so one, you have that space itself, just as a macro, is exploding, right? I mean, you think about things like Fortnite and the others. It's way bigger than Hollywood, and you're like, really? And it's hard for my generation because you're like, oh, get the kids off the phones, right? Yeah. Kids socialize now on Fortnite, 7 kids on headsets in 7 different houses talking themselves and playing together. And so there's
such a different world, right?
Cultural shift. And so I think you're going to see the first big use cases, and we're investing big there. We have a fund there. We partnered up with Block One on this $325 million fund. And so the whole focus of that fund is the kind of esports, gaming, digital platform, virtual objects. And so I think that'll probably be the first sense we see real adoption. There's also going to be this idea of tokenization of everything. So how can the public invest in a Picasso or invest in the new digital object that has value just because it's got scarcity, or music royalties, right? So like, I was kidding around, if you had, Paul McCartney's music royalties, right now they're owned by Sony ATV. If they wanted to sell out pieces of them to retail, I think there'd be a lot of buyers who'd say, hey, I think that music's going to go higher or lower. And so almost like a new stock market for assets that used to not be able to be fractionalized. That's going to happen. The SEC's slowing it down a little bit. It's growing overseas a little bit.
How long do you think it'll take?
You'll see something in the next 12 months, but it won't be a real big market for 3 years. I think the sobriety I've had hit me recently is, and I was an early investor in Peloton, the bicycle, platform company that now is worth $7 or $8 billion. That was 7 years ago or 8 years ago. Like, it takes a long time to build a business. And I think the sobriety that hit me recently is, 3 years would be fast to kind of change the way we think of things. And this whole revolution really didn't get juice until 2 years ago. And so we're still really early on in this space. When I look at my own company, we are sobering up of like, okay, luckily we have a big balance sheet. We have a lot of cash. But I was like, dude, I don't want a huge burn rate.
So the other area that you touched upon was privacy issues or concerns. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. So privacy is happening, or we're losing our privacy so fast it's bizarre. And I like to use China as an example. China now, in China, about 95% of all financial transactions happens on your phone through payment apps, WeChat and Alipay being the two biggest. But there are 25 on payment apps that make up 95% of China's spending. That in the US is about 3% or 4%. And so, but we're heading that way. In China, all 95% of payment apps goes to a government clearing center. So the government knows everything that anyone spent. Now think about this. If 5 years ago, just this room, if we knew what we all spent, and every single thing we spent was put on a ledger, on this board,
right,
and you were saying, okay, go figure it out. It'd take you months to figure out that, this guy behind you bought condoms 3 days ago, and what does that mean about him? It's only now that we have machine-based learning ability to process that gigantic pile of data. Think about 1.2 billion Chinese or 1.3 billion Chinese. Every expense they've made is in a database. That's a breathtaking idea.
Yeah.
But now you can process it, and you can figure out who's gay and who's not gay, who's likely to side with the Uyghurs and who's not, who's likely to be anti-government and who's not. That didn't exist 5 years ago, and it exists today. And so we need to be more worried about people owning our data today because of what people can do, how they can manipulate data. And, that's happening at a rapid speed. The Prime Minister of Brunei, or the Sultan of Brunei, I wish he was a Prime Minister and not a Sultan, came out about 4 months ago and said, passing a new law that gay men are going to be stoned to death in the town square. Gay women, they're only going to get 10 years in jail. And adulterers, they also get stoned to death. Seemed aggressive to me.
Yeah.
But imagine that guy, now he's going to buy China's technology, and he'll know instantly who's gay and who's not, just by what they shop and what they search online. And you can get to a dystopian world really frickin' quickly, and it's not science fiction anymore. Mm-hmm. It could be reality. And so I do think one of the biggest reasons I got excited about this in the first place is this is like an issue of our time on how do we safeguard against bad government, bad companies, and protect ourselves. And the blockchain has the capacity to be that firewall. Now, it's a race, it's an arms race, and I don't know, I was talking to one of my smartest friends, he was like, dude, you're wasting your time, it's already over. Like, maybe he's right, I'm not that pessimistic. And so I can easily see building in systems that safeguard privacy. One of the ironies of the Libra project, Libra is Facebook's attempt to create a stable-ish coin, a payment currency, payment rails, is everyone's fear because Facebook has been this repository of all our data and have had plenty of privacy violations, is why would we take the heroin junkie and let him become the new dealer, right? But if you read through the Libra project, it's while not decentralized, it's a distributed blockchain with 100 different people, and at the core of it, there is a ability to have privacy. And so now, where that is. There's a fair debate. Is that the right place to have our big payments system, given Facebook's past reputation, or would it have been better off if it wasn't them and someone else? But having what's positive about them is you could kickstart it with 2 billion people. The hard part of any of these new operating systems is not just building, but it's getting people into the sandbox. Hey, I built this big shiny toy. Can you come play with it? And so I do think the success of this space is wildly important for future generations in terms of, like, give me another example, medical data, right? 23andMe, you lick the stick and they tell you that you're probably part Lebanese. And you're like, what? Okay, I thought I was Lebanese, but I didn't know I was Jewish.
Yeah.
Or my wife found out that she's 13% American Indian. My kids could have got into school if they knew they were American Indians. Literally had no idea, absolutely no idea there was in her family. And so that's kind of all fun stuff. We're all doing it. Well, when you do it 23andMe, you literally give the blueprint of your body away to somebody. You're giving it away for free. Actually, you're paying them to give it to them. Like, that's an inane thought.
Yeah.
And that data, can be sold for medical research. It can be, like, you don't own the data, or they do. That's stupid. We should all have a DNA depository where you can put your data in, right? Coded, under cryptography, so people don't know it's you, and you can sell it if you want. It can be used, and so you can get all the benefits that science can use on these big data sets without giving up your identity. And if you're going to give up your identity, you should get paid for some, your data. And so you can create these systems that are just better off for society, where you don't need to trust the government, or you don't need to trust the company. In this case, we're trusting, Wojcicki, and she seems like a wonderful, nice lady, but man, I hope she is, because she's got a lot of our data. And so those systems are being built. They're being built quickly. It's just, it's a race against the status quo, also building their firewalls and trying to develop these businesses that are too big to fail in some ways.
I want to switch gears a little bit in terms and talking about some of your social work that you're doing with social justice. Can you walk us through how did you get into it?
Sure. So, I was born a middle-class Catholic, and my mom used to say, "Oh, you're given so much, you've got to give back." Mm-hmm. And we all bought into that. And I look back on it, we had seven kids with one bathroom and one brush. So we were like, well, how much were we given? But, we have a big loving family, and never thought we weren't rich, right? And rich in love and rich in stuff, and never, so we got Converse instead of Pumas. We used to be bitter about that. We got the cheap sneakers, come on, Mom. But there was a sense of giving from the start. That partly came from being Catholic and partly came from my family, my mom and dad. I have a sister that's gone into, she taught a philanthropy course, and she started a company called the Acumen Fund 20 years ago, which is trying to bring scalable services to the 3 billion people that used to make less than $3 a day. Luckily now it's a lower number. And so social justice, social impact has been part of the fabric of our broad family. I did a lot with sports and youth-based sports. A company called foundation called Beat the Streets was a big part of my philanthropic giving. And then recently, I'd say 3 years ago, we got into criminal justice reform. And it was partly my daughter working at the Bronx Defenders, which is a public defender group up in the Bronx. It was meeting Brian Stevenson, who I think is an American treasure, and hearing his story about injustice in the South. And his book Just Mercy is about a guy who's wrongfully convicted and put on death row. And it happened in 1987 in Alabama, and I was like, son of a bitch, I was in Alabama in 1987. I was literally 40 miles from where this happened. It wasn't 1950s. It was like when I was there, this crazy shit's happening. And so I got involved partly because I made a lot of money on Ethereum, I decided to make a bigger philanthropic gift and heard Robin Steinberg pitch what is now called the Bail Project about the injustice of cash bail in America. And it's a 3-minute pitch, and I can sell you in 3 minutes. It's just insane. We tonight, 500,000 people will go to bed in jail, having been arrested but not convicted solely because they can't afford bail. If they were middle class or wealthy, they wouldn't be in jail. 500,000 people every night. And when they're in jail, they're 7 times more likely to plead guilty so they can get home to their families. When they're in jail, they're cut off. 40% of prison death happens in the first week someone's in jail. 40% of prison rape happens in the first week. And so you're vulnerable. If I bail you out, half the time the DA drops the charges. So we have this whole system. Mm-hmm. And so we made a pretty sizable donation to help scale this national bail project, where we bail people out of jail. Like, the fairy godmother shows up and says, dude, we're bailing you out, do us a favor and show up and come back. And now we're trying to figure out how to also provide them services so they don't go back. Well, I felt pretty good about that until I realized, shit, I can't be the chairman of one of the largest buckets in criminal justice without knowing how the whole space operates. And so I hired a young guy, Billy Watterson, who's a rock star, and we started mapping out the criminal justice space from pretrial stuff all the way through death penalty and prosecutorial reform and probation and parole and conditions in prisons and reintegration policies and try to understand who was doing what was being funded, who are the funders, who are the activists, where's the intellectual foundation, who are the universities working on, the studies, and really created a pretty darn good map of the space, and then wanted to meet people in the space. And as you meet people, the stories are so damn compelling, you can't help yourself but to get involved a little bit more. And so now it completely dominates our philanthropy. I'm on a group called Reform. One of the things we noticed was probation and parole had no funding. And, Michael Rubin, who's a dynamic son of a gun, owns Fanatics and was a friend of Meek Mill, came in with Meek Mill one day and was like, dude, we want you to be part of this group Reform. We're going to take on probation and parole. And I was like, it's right in my freaking board that it's, and so now we've got this amazing partnership with Meek and Jay-Z and Robert Kraft and Clara Sy and Dan Loeb to focus just on probation and parole. We're doing bail with other groups. We met a guy named Philip Atiba Goff who's doing police. It's called Police Equity. It's going to police stations and showing them, giving them a data set, a dashboard, so they can actually make good decisions. Right? He says that we don't care what you feel, we care what you do. And so let's look at how police departments are behaving and give them a dashboard so they can change that behavior. Because the police departments don't want to be racist. Right. They don't want the community hating them. And
that's such a hard job, right? I mean, you're set up in a way to fail on their side also.
Yeah. So what's been interesting about this is there's a movement happening in criminal justice reform. When I started looking into this, we figured there was maybe $150 million a year going into the space philanthropically. Today, there's probably $600 million. I can think of 15, 20, notable billionaire types that have made this a big part of their giving. And it feels like there's this army of people that's struggled for 30 years tirelessly, doing the Lord's work, pushing the Scythian rock up the hill, and it's about to crest and roll downhill. And we've had already the first step back, which was bipartisan, that made some difference. It'll probably get 4,000 or 5,000 people out of prison. So it's symbolic, but it's heading in the right direction in Congress. We passed great bail legislation here in New York. And so you're broadly doing away with unaffordable cash bail in New York. And so my real hope and sense is in 5 years from now, we will really have shifted, not me shifted, this broader community will have shifted the way Americans think about incarceration and justice.
What surprised you the most of working in this broad topic?
Just how stupid so many of the systems are. Like, we have this parole system in America. We have 4.5 million people on parole. Half of the people that go to jail each year are there for a parole violation. The parole violation doesn't mean you've committed a new crime. It means maybe you've showed up 15 minutes late for your parole meeting because the goddamn subway broke. Maybe you got a traffic ticket for an illegal U-turn. You can be violated for the stupidest things. And people are like, oh, I don't believe that. And having now met the people and looked at it, you have to start believing. This movie that Bryan Stevenson, well, he didn't put it out, the Warner Brothers put it out. Michael B. Fox plays Bryan Stevens. Michael B. Jordan plays Bryan Stevenson, and Jamie Foxx plays the wrongfully convicted man. You watch it, you're like, that couldn't have happened. It absolutely couldn't have happened, but it did. And I get a story a day of shit that couldn't have happened but did. And it infuriates you. And when I tell my friends in New York City, and we live in Tribeca, and I call it Triburbia sometimes, that 4 miles away there is a prison ship that is called the barge or the ship or the boat, depending on what you call it, that serves as the jail up in the Bronx. It's a 40-year-old steamship that was floated from New Orleans that sits in the harbor right next to the fish factory and the sewage factory. And so you walk down this long, narrow pathway, half a mile pathway, to this ship, and all you can think of is, we have a goddamn slave ship in New York Harbor. It looks like this hunking, rusty ship filled with black and brown guys shackled together in orange suits. And you're like, is this for a movie set? No, this is happening. And you tell your friends in Manhattan, they're like, that can't be true. That's not happening. You just go take a fucking ride up to the Bronx. And so we have this outrageous system that needs to be dismantled. And it's not going to get dismantled overnight, and there's a lot of complicated issues. But if everybody just got a little proximity, if I take you into a jail, it will change how you think about jail.
Right.
And so, but most people never see jail. Or most of the people that we're used to hanging out with. And for the people that see it all the time, the shit system's been normalized. That's what happens. And so we've normalized this horrific system in one half of our country, and the other half of our country has no idea it's happened. And so that needs to change. And, I'm excited that the winds of change are here, and I do think it will change, but it's going to take a Herculean effort.
I'm excited about the work that you're doing, and I think a lot of our audience members would love to learn more. Is there a website that you'd recommend for them to learn from?
Sure. I mean, the Bail Project has got its own website. Reform has its own website. Those are two places to start. But if you literally just, the ACLU's got a criminal justice, website. Vera Justice is an amazing group. The best site to really just understand the system is called the Prison Policy Initiative. Peter Wagner up in, I think, in New Hampshire. He puts out a paper every day, and it's the numbers just shock you. I'll tell you one last story. We took a bunch of people in the system, both activists. We took heads of bureaus of prisons, prison wardens from really tough states, and some media to Germany and Norway to look at their prisons. And it was sponsored by Vera Justice. We co-sponsored it. And you go to a German prison, and it feels like a state university. It could have been SUNY New Paltz. They look like dorms. They're fields. And you're like, wait a minute, what's that guy in for? Same crimes our guys are in for. Their whole system, the moment you're sentenced and you're losing some of your liberty, that's the only right you lose. Everything is geared to getting you integrated back in society. So their sentences are 1/3 as long, and the people that run their prisons are PhDs in rehab, not prison guards that have worked their way up through the system. Then you go to Norway and it's even better. And so there is a different way. And we have this archaic barbarian system that dehumanizes people from the start. Even the fact that you have to shit in public. Like, that's just not, why? What good is that doing other than humiliating somebody? Strip search, what good is it doing? And so we really need a shift. Anyway, so those are my 4 resources.
Now for a quick word about our sponsors, and we'll be right back. In addition to being one of the best smart contracts blockchain in the world, with extremely low fees and easy-to-use platform, Qtum's proof-of-stake system lets anyone stake with as little as a fraction of a Qtum. To learn more and start building today, go to qtum.org. Whether it's solving a technical challenge, hiring the right engineers, or finalizing a fundraising round, AWS has the experience you need to get started. There's a reason more startups build on AWS than any other provider. They're here to help you succeed from inception through to IPO. For more information, go to aws.amazon.com/startups and follow on Twitter at AWS Startups. I love that. I think that's very inspiring, and I love the work that you've been doing. And so before we jump into a rapid fire question, why don't we switch to a happy note? So when was your last moment of peak happiness?
I'm always happy. I have a party every 4 years or every 2 years called the Gansett Games, where I invite 300 of it's kind of an extended family reunion. It's my family, my friends, my kids' friends. We've learned how to define family bigger and bigger. And that happened this summer, and it's a 3-day party, and the third day, everyone's broken up into one of 6 teams, and we play the dumbest sports, from 3-legged race to, there are 300 people literally running the mile in costumes and doing the 3-legged race. And, about halfway through that party, when I realized it's a success, and I can finally relax, that was probably my last moment of peak happiness, where, I've got all my best friends and family in this joyful setting and, being silly, and it was like, life's good.
I love that. All right, should we jump into rapid fire questions?
Rapid fire away.
All right, let's do it. How much do you sleep?
I try to sleep a lot. I probably sleep 6 to 7 hours a night. But my wife has been beating on me. Like, there's this new book on sleep. It says, dude, if you don't sleep, you're not going to live long. You're not going to be. And so we're supposed to try to at least get 7, but I'm not as good as I should be. I drink too much. When I drink, it interrupts your sleep.
That's great. 6 to 7 is not bad. I think Joe Lubin's on under 6.
Probably.
Yeah. So what's your favorite book?
What's my favorite book? I'm the kind of person, whatever book I'm reading becomes my favorite book. Right now I'm reading The 3-Body Problem, which is a Chinese science fiction book, which is awesome. I think it's the most read book in China ever. I could be wrong on that, or at least recently. But it's a really cool science fiction book. And I'm not a science fiction guy. But I really am like that. Whenever I read a book, I'm like, I got to tell everybody about it. I'm like so excited. When I read *Sapiens*, I thought it was the greatest book. But I think that's one of the greatest books I've read, because he just puts so much into it.
Outside of work, what is your favorite hobby?
Throwing parties and going to parties. I'm a hyper-social person, but I like throwing parties. It's kind of my artistic expression. Now I'm getting into art. We're building a sculpture garden, a landscape sculpture garden. And so I never thought art, I've always thought the market was too high. But now that I'm getting into it, I'm really enjoying it.
What's your biggest life hack?
My biggest life hack, maybe more advice. So I gave my first commencement address, which is pretty exciting, at University of Iowa to the School of Education. And the whole thing was go find yourself. And what I realized is so few people go on that journey to explore themselves. Before you can have a happy marriage. There was a great article about happy marriages. It's like you have to actually be happy with yourself first.
Be happy, yeah.
And I realized once a year I try to spend a week by myself. So one year I did a Vipassana meditation, 12 days sitting silently, or they say it's 10 days, but it's really 12, or it's 10 and 2 halves. brutally difficult for someone like me. But you learn something about yourself. This year I did a week down in Costa Rica at this Ayahuasca center where you take this, ancient Peruvian concoction of plants and you have an amazing hallucinogenic experience and you purge shit out of your body you don't need, and you learn more about yourself in that week than in almost any week. It's literally like a true serum. And so I was telling all these kids, travel, prayer, meditation, a therapist, a shrink, go figure out who you are. And that's, I guess, for me, they're all valid paths. Ayahuasca is a pretty cool one because it mainlines like you got to be ready for it. You got to, be in the right state, and you got to do it in the right place with the right. You got to be in a safe space and set and setting. But it's a pretty cool hack to figure out who you are.
Do you pray?
Only when I'm really in trouble. I'm like such the bad guy. I'm like, oh, dear God, I will never do this again. I promise.
All the Hail Marys come back.
I wrote Hail Mary full of. I got them all still. You know what? I try to quietly contemplate or meditate, which is a form of prayer. But it is funny. When the shit hits the fan, I'm right back to Hail Mary full of grace.
I love that. And so, AI, we talked a little bit about it. Is it scary or exciting?
Both. It really is both. I think it's more scary than exciting in some ways. Like, humanity has the capacity to be awesome. And I have felt joyful and blissed out when a place I go in Chennai, India, One World Academy. Like, they constantly change their name, but they're these monks, and you eat healthy, and they give you these talks, and you do some exercises. Some of it's psychotropic breathing, some of it's meditation, and whatever it is, the energy of the place, you just are joyful. And it always got me to thought, like, that could be an end state in itself. Like, the revolution doesn't have to be through technology. It can just be through getting people to tap into universality, to joy state, to oneness. And so when I think of the downsides of AI, listen, I told someone yesterday I would pay half my fortune to ensure that I was alive in 50 years just to see how it all turns out. Because I think the next 50 years are going to be fascinating, right? With climate change and AI and all the rest of it. But it scares me. You can't stop it. And so we're you just want to hope you have smart people around. There's a great TV show on. Here's a recommendation for anyone who loves to binge watch TV called Years and Years. And it's a UK show. Emma Thompson plays a Trump-like character. And it starts really, in earnest starts right at the end of Trump's second term. When Mike Pence is president. But it's done from UK eyes. And it takes all these stories, AI and, from the good stories or the complicated stories, genetic augmentation, human, getting fake eyes and whatnot, plus the refugee crisis, homophobia, the good and the bad. And it exaggerates where we are right now. And I won't give any more away. It's shockingly powerful. And it's exactly how I feel about the world. I was like, fuck. In some ways, how in God's name did we let it get here? 20 years ago, we had this unbelievable optimism. We would just come off the best 15 years in the history of the planet in some ways. We had the end of history. We had this optimism. And all of a sudden, we're heading into this pessimism. We've got shitty leaders in Hungary and Turkey and the U.S. and in China. And literally, half the world, more than half the world, is ruled by these despots and quasi-dictators, and our president embarrasses us almost every day. Idiocy. And you've got the fractionalization or the balkanization of lots of things happening. You're like, how in God's name did we get here this fast? I was reading the article on climate change today and how fast it's happening, and you're like, 20 years ago it seemed great. Now it seems horrible. I'm sure it's not as horrible as it seems. It wasn't as great as it seemed. But man, it seems pretty shitty right now.
What is one thing that you believe in that most people don't?
I certainly believe that everyone's redeemable. That, as Brian Stevens says, you're not your worst moment. And I've seen amazing transformations in people. And so I'm not sure most people don't believe, but a lot of people don't believe that, right? Anyone who's for the death penalty doesn't believe that. And there's a bunch of people for the death penalty. I literally think anyone's redeemable. So.
If you had one piece of advice for people just starting off their career, what would it be?
Don't take it too seriously. There's, I think, the older I get, the realize, people are, how's your day? It's like the woman I bumped into say, how things going? And I remember I used to have an exaggerated answer. Great or shitty. They're all right. And it would be to focus on yourself, that self-growth. Don't put that off. That would be my biggest advice. Because the quicker you get to being okay with you, knowing who you are and being okay with who you are, once that resonates, everything else is easier. And so that would be my biggest piece. It's crazy we don't teach it in elementary school and in high school and in college, right? Most people don't start the journey until they really fuck up. Quite frankly, I didn't start the journey until I really screwed up. And I'm the norm. It absolutely doesn't have to be that way. And so that was my biggest advice to people.
What is your superpower?
I'm hyper-social, and I can make friends with people really quick, partly because I don't have a lot of boundaries. I get yelled at by my wife and shrink, and lots of people to have more boundaries. And so if you're willing to share with yourself, people are willing to share with you. And so I end up developing friendships really quickly.
What do you want to be remembered for?
It's funny, I've thought a lot. I hate the word legacy. I think we probably shouldn't want to be remembered. We should just, this idea of legacy, it's such a self-centric idea. Just want to do, you try to leave the world a little better than you found it, or have positive impact on people. And so I guess if there was a journal of nice things you did, that's what you want to be remembered for. You want to add up more nice things than shitty things, But I think the word legacy is a bad one. That the focus on people have on it. And listen, my name's on a building. My kids give me shit all the time. They're like, Dad, I can't believe you did that. Every once in a while my mother was putting some pressure on me. Your ego shows up. Your name, and some of that's leadership, but quite frankly, I think it's the wrong focus.
And what do you want your children to remember you for?
I thought I was a good dad. I think that's a simple one. It's so funny. My father is 82, and he's become nicer, literally, probably for the last 20 straight years. A little bit nicer every year. He was tough. He was a tough guy when we were kids, and as you get older, he was a great football player when he was young, and he was in the military, and none of that really mattered to him anymore. And quite frankly, to us, right? And so I do think as you get older, it's just the human connections that matter, being sweet. I saw the two movies I saw this week, and one had a Mr. Rogers. You got to see Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers. He is literally the sweetest man on the planet. You're just like, if we could all take a little bit of Mr. Rogers and Brian Stevenson, those two guys, I was like, okay, enough goodness,
Okay.
But I think that has to be the goal.
Thanks so much for listening to that episode. New episodes launch every Tuesday at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to continue the conversation, you can find me on Twitter at Mayra Ceja 007. And I'll see you next time.